The spectacular autumn colors dazzle my eyes as I pass through forests lined with lofty trees preparing themselves for the cold winter. I am in New Haven, on my way to meet the renowned Dr. Bernie Siegel. Dr. Siegel is a well-known doctor, writer, and intellectual.
We need to open doctors' minds so that they would say to patients, why didn't you die? How come you've done well? What I learned was every patient had a story.
His approach focuses on the body-soul connection with an emphasis on the personal responsibility that individuals must take for their lives.
If I said to you, you need an operation or you have to have chemotherapy, it's your choice. It's not me telling you what to do. But that's why I say I try to heal lives, not just cure diseases.
Beyond operations, sickness, and treatments, the key to recovery lies in touching the spirit with love. He developed a way of incorporating this into the healing process.
Survival behavior relates to having meaning in your life, expressing emotions, asking for help, saying no if you don't want to do things, not living a role, but a meaningful life, that you know how to use your pain, in a sense, and your feelings to change your life, and that you also have play in your life.
I'm 47 years old, and 7 years ago, I was told I had 6 months to live. I was diagnosed with a really rare form of leukemia. They didn't think there was any hope for me. And when I got to Bernie, one of the first things he ever said to me was, I can tell you're a survivor. And I said, how can you tell that? I was like 25 pounds smaller than I am now. I was extremely ill. And I said, how can you tell that? And he said, because I can feel it and you're a survivor. Just to have someone say that to you when you're in that midst, not saying that that turned me around and that made everything better, but it was huge for me to have someone say that to me, like, you're gonna survive. Nobody dared to say that to me because people are afraid to give you hope.
People know I care. I try to what I call live discernment, that I care about them and I'm not judging them. So if you don't get well, you're a failure, you know, it's about helping them live. And the thing that I feel is that all I can do is coach people. In other words, when people give me credit, say, oh, you saved my life. I say, I can't. Only you can save your life. But I can help you.
David Kovitz was a veterinarian. He had a successful clinic and a loving family in what seemed to be the perfect life. But something was missing, bothering him. One day, after recently retiring, he received the news. You have a brain tumor.
I was very well known locally and I was successful and all of that, but at the end of my career, I was petrified. There was constant anxiety in my life. Whether or not I could retire, whether or not there'd be enough to support my family, would I hurt some animal, would I do something wrong? And that kind of tension was affecting me tremendously. And I had a convulsion and they diagnosed a brain tumor and it was bleeding into my brain and I needed emergency surgery. I came back to Connecticut and then embarked on long-term chemotherapy at Yale. And that was the start of the path towards, well, what do I do now? What have I done? What have I done to contribute to the development of cancer in my own body?
Life, I mean, God didn't make a perfect world because a perfect world is not creation. We're here to create that. So life is a school, and consciousness exists beyond the body.
Bernie investigated the phenomenon of spontaneous remission from illness, which could not be explained by conventional medicine. He noticed that in these cases, patients took responsibility for their contribution to the illness and the healing, and he concluded that remission stemmed from the internal capability to heal oneself.
we can see this, how people's personality, lifestyle, all these things create an effect which can then activate a gene. In other words, the gene doesn't decide what happens to you, but the chemistry that can activate the gene is what decides what happens.
Their thoughts created a reality which transformed the state of their illness.
If you said to a patient, okay, you're a case of self-induced healing, what have you done? We'd learn from the patients. Doctors will say, I can't accept that. But we have the pathology, we have the report, why can't you accept it? And that's why I get upset with so-called medical education. It isn't an education, it's a lot of information. And today, it's getting worse and worse. It's hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, write a prescription. Here's a pill, goodbye. Well, how about what's going on in your life?
Bernie defines the conditions for healing. Acceptance. Accept reality as it is. Accept the illness and your part in its existence.
You're trying to heal or not die. If you're trying to heal, that's very different. If you try not to die, then go do everything, so you don't get mad at yourself. But if you say, I'm trying to heal my life and do what's right for me, fine. Then you don't get upset with yourself. Dying is not a failure.
Forgiveness. Refrain from passing judgment. Forgive.
When you forgive, I always say you give yourself a gift. You're free.
Whether you end up living or dying from your disease, you have to know that you gave it everything.
Believe in the unbelievable. Do things which encourage happiness. Surrender to reality and your path in life.
Cancer patients who laugh live longer. Studies have shown that. And when I say laugh, I mean literally, they just laugh. I would say to anybody watching or listening to this, start laughing now. Watch how you feel 5 minutes from now. And the people around you will start laughing too, because you're laughing. And you don't need anything funny, but by laughing, again, you change your body chemistry.
Love. Love everything, including the pain.
Bernie allowed me to see that who I am was just fine. He allowed that. He opened the space to see that it wasn't just David the veterinarian. There were other parts.
He puts things in very simple, basic terms for you to be able to deal with when your mind is telling you a million things. He teaches you how to clear it and have it be a simple solution.
And it seems that I wasn't myself. I was performing. I did a good job. Many of us do a good job of performing in the world, but I wasn't who I am.
Teaches you how to live your life. It just teaches you he teaches us how to embrace everything that happens every day.
Most of us are brought up literally with guilt, shame, and blame. So if your parents say to you, you're a failure, you embarrass us, we're only going to dress you in dark colors so nobody will notice you. These people are a mess because they're always hearing those words. So their whole life, they're always failures. If they get sick, I shouldn't try to get better because then I'll fail again. I'll just go home and die. I will say to people, if you lose your car keys, does God want you to walk home? They look at you and say, no, I've looked for my car keys. Fine. Then if you lose your health, go look for it. It isn't really up to me, it's up to them. The way I put it is, if you come out for a team and I'm the coach and you don't practice, doesn't matter how good a coach I am.
Dr. Bernie Siegel was born to a Jewish family in Brooklyn. He studied medicine at Colgate College, Cornell, and Yale. In the 1970s, whilst working as a doctor, he began to understand that his role as a caregiver was far greater than just medical studies.
What are you not taught in medical school? How to deal with loss, how to deal with your feelings and emotions. And at a workshop that I went to help me care for patients, one of my patients was there. And she said, I need to know how to live between office visits. That changed my life.
In 1989, he stopped working as a conventional doctor and began to journey across the world in an attempt to investigate the phenomenon he had discerned, the body's capability to heal itself. The sensational and groundbreaking discovery led Bernie to write several books, including Love, Medicine, and Miracles, which became a bestseller. Bernie became known as a person capable of inspiring the sick and facilitating miracles for patients previously diagnosed as terminally ill.
How it was like, being in the heart of the institutional medicine and go against the stream.
People just stood back and said, all right, he's crazy. But what I learned was nobody's against success. See, if you gave a lecture, they argued with you. That's poorly controlled, it doesn't make sense, it's not scientific. If you did it at the hospital for 3 months and something good happened, everybody imitated you and it became hospital policy, then they were willing to listen. I mean, I started, for instance, playing music in the operating room over 30 years ago. And they told me I was an explosion hazard because the gases used were explosive. So if you brought a tape recorder in and plugged it in, but within a week, everybody said, forget it. You feel better listening to music. So if we blow up, we blow up. Nobody. And then all the other doctors started buying tape recorders and putting them in. And 30 years later, they did a study at Yale showing that music in the operating room lowers the need for drugs and patients heal faster. Suddenly it's scientific. See, I say there are many things I can't explain or understand. Who knows where the universe came from? But we don't deny that we're here. And yet doctors will act in a very different way. If you can't explain it, I don't want to accept it. Your genes are also affected by the environment in your body. So I would say literally, if you're enjoying life, your cancer cells will be more susceptible than if you say, I don't like life and I'm miserable and I'm depressed and I'm unhappy. Yeah, I'd say the disease is more likely to advance then, in terms of how it affects the genes, your immune system, and a whole host of things.
David joined Bernie's support group. There he found inner peace, which allowed him to ask new questions, and with them came answers.
The brain tumor was a wake-up call. There's no question. You can't go through that experience without having some consciousness shift. But it doesn't have to happen that way. We're all asking the question all the time. Who am I? Is this all there is? I'm bored. Something. There's always this existential dissatisfaction that goes on. It's the nature of humans to ask these questions. People I know, I have friends who are multimillionaires who are dissatisfied with life. There's no pleasure. It's just having. There's no being to it. So the mind-body connection is very, very clear to me. And I think I produced a brain tumor.
I've noticed for years that if somebody cries, you don't tell them, oh, it'll be all right. You give them a tissue and you let them share their feelings. And that's why the groups become so powerful. You have people like Susan, David, who have been there. So when a new person walks in, hey, there's hope. You've been there a few years ago. Hey, then maybe I can keep going. So it's a room full of hope. And we're more likely to listen.
People are afraid to give you hope because they're afraid they're going to give you false hope. And that's one thing I don't believe that there's ever such a word as called false hope or a sentence, because hope is hope. If someone gives it to you, it's at least something you could hang on to. They pretty much sent me home to die. The doctors had given me absolutely no hope. Told me to, pretty much say goodbye to my 3- and 5-year-old. And my sister had given me a book of Bernie's, and still to this day, she can't figure out who gave it to her or where it came from in her house. There was a drug that was in clinical trials in Oregon. So I asked Bernie, I said, Bernie, should I go for this? Should I try to, And he said, you know the answer. Do you want to live? And I said, of course I want to live. And he goes, how do you want to live your life, though? Do you want to live and be sick? And do you want to, he made me make choices that I don't think I would have done on my own.
It isn't me, it's them. But I saw something in Susan in a sense of what she was willing to do. So I knew she had that personality. I mean, she was willing even to travel. I mean, she went across country.
I don't think I would have had the courage to go and find it unless Bernie pulled that out of me.
What's within the person, their willingness to participate. And that's what I felt in Susan, like from day one. I mean, she was there, in the room with her husband, and willing to look into things and pursue them and deal with her emotions. I mean, I don't know if she shared with you, but she was in the hospital with depression. But you see, that woke her up too, because it's like saying to all the other patients there, hey, I could die. I have cancer. What are you depressed about?
And I am here 7 years later, still taking the same medication every day and loving my life. So
it's not a case. So I say, you know, the survival behavior, you know, what she was willing to do and pursue. Right. You know, and I think some of that's in you, even though you only went to Simsbury so far.
When I first started going there, probably about 6 months after I was going there, he was asking everybody in the room what was the best day of your life. And a lot of people said, oh, the day I had my child, or the day I did this, and I said, today. And he looked at me and he said, wow, you've come so far. And I went, I can't even believe I said that.
And that's something I tell everybody, accept the fact that you're mortal. You're here for a limited time. I worked with the angel of death as a doctor. And if you went into a room and the angel of death was at the foot of the bed, meant the person was going to die. At the head of the bed, they're going to get better. One day, I operate on a child, I walk in, and the angel's at the foot of the bed. So I turned the bed around, and the angel said, what are you doing? I said, I don't want this child to die. The angel said, you don't understand. Come with me. We went up to heaven. The angel said, all the children who died this month are going to march by in a parade. Watch. And everybody's walking by with a beautiful candle. And I said, there's a child coming with a dark candle. Oh, go light it. And I went up, and it was the boy I had operated on. And I said to him, your candle's out. Let me light it for you. And he said, they do, but your tears keep putting it out. That's when I learned how to deal with grief. I mean, to not let it change my life, but to keep living. And to me, that's what it's about, you know? How long are you here for? Just to keep spreading your light around for that entire time.
To assess how he could help patients beyond surgical intervention, he began to ask them questions so as to compile an overview of their emotional state. He directed them to draw their feelings and was able to decode the underlying emotion behind the illness.
If you're painting a portrait, you can retouch it. This is what I tell people. You're a work in progress. You don't throw the painting out if it doesn't look good. You study it and the person, and you touch it up and fix it. And that's what you do with your life. You don't say, oh, I'm a failure. No, you're a work in progress. And I think that's what we all have to realize. We're like blank canvases, and you spend a lifetime creating your work of art. I began to see literally that people drew their diagnosis in the picture. I mean, the images became very powerful and meaningful. It also helped me to help patients, because if I said to you, draw yourself in the operating room, and it's a horrible picture. You're lying there all by yourself in a black box, nobody's taking care of you. Well, you can say, all right, get another surgeon or don't have an operation. But you could also say, we could change the picture. Go home, visualize it being successful, waking up comfortable and hungry and doing well. And you do that 4 or 5 times a day for a week, and I say, draw a picture again, it's a totally different picture.
When I was first diagnosed, I did a drawing, and, you know, like, I don't think the people had any ears. And it was all in black and white, and there was no color. He said, you don't feel like you have any control. You can't hear anything that people are telling you. So even though people were telling me things are going good, your blood counts are getting better, I was still in that black hole. So the next time I drew it, I had ears, I had a smile, there was sunshine.
Well, David before was very much a heady guy. A lot of anger. A lot of judgmentalness. Faith that I now have is that faced with a challenge, that I will seek to not suffer, that I know how to get away from suffering. So I would say that I have no suffering anymore.
I think also as we understand the human body more and what affects genes, it'll be less drug, less kill-oriented and more how can we heal the body. When you think how one cell creates a human being, if we understood that intelligence, then, yeah, we could communicate with the body and say, fix this, do that, and not, burn all these things to try to get you better.
If you experience something fully, even painful stuff, as it melts, what's in its place is joy, because that's our natural being. That's there. The heart is there. It just wants us to open.
If a blind person has a near-death experience, they see when they're out of their body. Explain that, all right? So as we become better educated and more loving, the future of the world will change.
He's a messenger. He's an avatar. He's come to teach, and to teach awakening.
I'm stronger. I'm smarter because of it. I have a different purpose in my life. I always appreciated my life before, but now I think this has all happened to me for a reason, and I feel very healed, even though I still have cancer. I'm healed.
This is, it shows one of our kids running in the marathon, which I've done too. I've run 5 marathons. But what I learned, see, life is a marathon. The key is finishing it, not how long it took. And one day when I was running through New York, a woman was standing on the street corner yelling, "You're all winners," at the people. And I really thanked her, because when you finish, you get a medal. It doesn't matter how long it took. You finish, you get the medal. And I'd say that's about life.
Pain, it comes. Suffering, it's an option. And all of us can do it to some degree. The more work you've done on yourself, the more conscious you are, the more you've learned that you can get away from the suffering.
And I feel like I have a lot to do before I'm done here on Earth. And Bernie's really helped me realize that.
Bernie guides a weekly elderly people support group. Despite having already seen and experienced almost everything, the participants never miss the opportunity to learn something new from Bernie.
Well, this is a quote from a lady. So my grandmother's in the hospital, and the nurses are beginning to look a bit sickly, okay? Grandma's driving everybody crazy. She fell in love with her doctor, so she doesn't want to get discharged from the hospital. I mean, my comment is that if everybody says, "Oh, Grandma, it's due to her medication," it's not room 402 or the colon problem or the gallbladder, it's Grandma. So when you go to the hospital, always make sure they know who you are as a person. I love them because they have so much experience that they become my teachers too. So if I've got problems, I'll often say to them, "How do you deal with loss?" But when you're willing to forgive, to understand, to love, it makes it a different world. I think for any group, it's really sharing. Whether you're meeting with high school students or seniors, or, people with cancer, AIDS, cystic fibrosis, it doesn't matter. Multiple sclerosis, it's just creating a new family where you're not judged. And there's more life in the room. It's okay to cry, it's okay to laugh. We're alive here and talking about meaningful things. Watch the hills, the curves and tunnels. Do not falter, do not fail. Keep your hand upon the throttle and your eye upon the rail. Blessed Savior's love will guide us till we meet that distant shore where the angels come to join us in the great forevermore. I like that song. I don't sing because you'd all leave.
Here, in his unique home in New Haven, I met with a special man who taught me so much. More than anything, he taught me about love and how there is no greater force.
Over God's desk are 3 plaques. One says, "Don't feel totally, personally, irrevocably, eternally responsible for everything that's my job." The other one says, "If you go around saying I got a miserable life, I'll show you what miserable really is. If you go around saying I got a wonderful life, I'll show you what wonderful really is." And the other was, "Everything you remember, I forget. Everything you forget, I remember."
Wow.
So I think if everybody lived that way, yeah, what a difference.